Many communities in North Carolina have experienced very damaging flooding in the past decade, and right after the flooding happens, we hear a lot about the dollar costs of property damage. But we don't know nearly as much about how people's day-to-day lives and livelihoods and longer-term recovery prospects unfold after these flooding events. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is delve deeply into those more longer-term questions. We're focusing on two storms, Hurricane Florence in 2018 and Hurricane Dorian in 2019, both very destructive but very different types of storms. We're focusing in on four particular questions: where the water went, what it's like on the ground during flooding, how people are affected by the flooding over the longer term, and whether mitigation efforts reduce impacts. We're working really hard to try to integrate across different disciplines. We're using social science methods, but we're combining those with methods from engineering and also methods from natural sciences. And so it's really that integration that forms a different approach to this set of questions. So one of the most important parts of this integration is combining household survey data with output from a sophisticated program called ADCIRC.
ADCIRC is a computer model that uses information from the National Hurricane Center on tropical storm paths and strengths to predict how the ocean responds and what that turns into is storm surge and coastal flooding. Our predictive modeling is critical for two reasons. One is when an event is coming, we want the best available information to know how to respond and to protect our property and our lives. We also use ADCIRC for longer-term assessment of risk. Is it safe to live in this area? What should the insurance rates be? And in that regard, we look at historical records of the storms, but we also look at how they might change with our climate change, so that we can look at kind of what the risk is today as well as what the risk will be in the future. We're looking here at output from the ADCIRC storm surge model. Hurricane Florence came kind of right at us. It was a big storm, and as a result, the counterclockwise winds actually reached far enough up into Pamlico Sound that they caused quite a lot of flooding along the western side and even up into areas like New Bern. On the right is Hurricane Dorian in 2019. Followed a path that's pretty typical for North Carolina hurricanes in that it comes up along the coast. The counterclockwise winds ended up blowing an awful lot of water in Pamlico Sound into the southern parts along the backside of the Outer Banks, a big impact in areas like Ocracoke.
So we use RIC's ADCIRC data in three ways. The first way is to understand at a landscape level where storm surge flooding went during both Dorian and Florence. Once we know that, we can identify communities to target for in-depth household interviews. The second way we use the data is to understand for particular properties how deep the water was on those properties. And that lets us relate depth of water coming from RIC's models to what individuals living on those properties experienced during the storm. Lastly, we try to combine those experiences with information they provide on psychosocial health in terms of symptoms of depression and symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And so that lets us show the linkage between the depth of the water, the experiences during the storm, and psychosocial health. And in that way, we're trying to move from solely a sort of property value damage-based perspective on what these storms do to how it affects people over the longer term.